Now we're going to look a little bit at teen dating violence. So just a reminder, we will be having discussions about dating abuse and sexual assault. If these are sensitive topics for you, please take care of yourself, whatever that looks like for you. If you have any questions or concerns or you would like to talk with an advocate, we at Safe Passage are here for you, so please reach out. We're going to start off our discussion with a couple of questions for you to think about. There's not necessarily just one right or wrong answer to any of these questions. So think about what your opinion is on these questions and why you have that opinion. As you're thinking about that, reflect on it, write it down, or talk about it to somebody who might be watching this video with you. The first question is, can words be abusive or hurtful? So think about that. How would you answer this? Would you answer with a yes, with a no? Maybe you think it depends, or you can kind of see both sides. So think about it. Does it matter who is saying the words? Maybe if somebody is really close to a person, or they really value or look up to them or value their opinion, harmful words would hurt a lot more than if they were coming from someone who is just a random stranger. Can words make a person feel like what they're representing? If somebody called someone worthless or annoying, could it make that person actually feel and believe as though they were worthless or annoying? Alternatively, if somebody told someone that they were valuable and important, could it make that person believe more in their own value and their own worth? Okay, the second question is, in your opinion, is it okay for a senior in high school to date a freshman? So is it okay for someone in the 12th grade to date someone in the 9th grade? What do you think? Take a few minutes again. Think about why you would answer. Is it okay always? Is it never okay? Maybe it depends sometimes, or you can kind of see both sides of the argument. Think about how you answer and why you answer in the way that you do, and write that down or talk to someone about it. So what do you think? Does it depend on the gender of the people in the relationship? One common thing that I hear is we often know of adults, maybe parents or other adults in our lives, who have a 4-year age gap or even more. So what do we think about that? Does that mean it's always fine for seniors and freshmen to date? Or is that age gap more significant when two people are teenagers? Is the difference between 14 years old and 18 years old more significant than the difference between 30 years old and 34 years old? Is it possible that maybe both people are at different places in life? Maybe one person is just getting out of middle school and the other person is thinking about college or a job after high school? And could that have an impact on the relationship? Is it possible that you could have an older freshman and a younger senior, or a more mature freshman who could maybe handle that relationship? Is it possible that a senior might have more dating experience than a freshman and might be able to use that to manipulate or pressure the younger person into doing things that they wouldn't otherwise do? Most people can agree that regardless of whether or not we think it's fine, it is important to evaluate all aspects of a relationship, including maturity and intentions, to determine whether or not that relationship is healthy or safe. The third question is jealousy a sign of love? So again, think about this, write it down, discuss it with someone, pause the video if you need to. So what do you think? If somebody saw their boyfriend or girlfriend talking in the hallway to someone and were worried that, maybe they liked that person more than them, what is that feeling? Is that feeling love, or is that something else? Could it depend on how someone reacts to their feelings of jealousy? Maybe how they decide to act on those emotions? Are there different levels or types of jealousy? Is there a difference between being jealous of a classmate's cool new shoes versus feeling jealous and possessive of a dating partner? Think about this. Have you ever felt jealous, and how often have you felt jealous? Was that love, or was that a different feeling? So most of us can agree that jealousy is a very normal and common emotion. But it is important to evaluate and determine when jealousy might be at risk of escalating into something more, like insecurity or fear or lack of trust. Acting on or using jealousy to control someone else is very, very harmful and abusive. Extreme jealousy and controlling behavior are some of the most common signs of an abusive relationship. So that's why it's very important, if those emotions of jealousy are cropping up, to be able to notice those and talk about those and kind of deal with those before they escalate into those more controlling behaviors. So we're going to talk a little bit about teen dating violence, and we're going to get started with a definition that we'll be using throughout these videos. So just so that we're all on the same page, this definition is a series of abusive behaviors that are used to gain power and control over someone that the person is in some type of relationship with. So this can happen in lots of different types of relationships. It can be a relationship where both people have been dating for a while and they're still dating. They could have dated for 2 weeks, 2 days, 2 months, 2 years, or however long that relationship has been. It could also be a situation where maybe they dated in the past and the relationship has ended. Or maybe they're just kind of talking or hanging out, but it's not an official relationship yet. So it's just that sort of relationship type of component that makes us classify it as teen dating violence or dating abuse. The most significant part of this definition is that series that is used to gain power and control. So those harmful behaviors are happening over time, and one person is trying to have power and control over that person that they're in some type of relationship with. Abuse doesn't always look like just one thing. A common misperception is that abuse is only really abusive if it's physical, like maybe hitting. And while that is a form of abuse and a common form of abuse, there are many other types as well. Physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional or psychological abuse, digital dating abuse, and stalking are all different types of abuse that we can see happening in relationships. Have you heard of all of these different types of abuse? Do you think that you have a good idea of what behaviors might be common in these different types? Go ahead and choose one of these types of abuse, pause the video, and try to come up with a definition and an example for that type of abuse. So take a few minutes and do that, and then come back. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and look at each different type. So whichever one you chose to write about, go ahead and listen to all of them, but then follow along and kind of see how your answers compare to our answers. Physical abuse is any unwanted or non-consensual or harmful physical contact. So that might include hitting. It could also include things like kicking or pushing or pinching or any kind of physical harm. It could also include like holding someone back or restraining someone and keeping them from going somewhere that they need or want to go, or using any type of weapons, or destroying objects, smashing phones, throwing things, anything like that. Sexual abuse is any unwanted or non-consensual sexual behavior. So often this is the first thing we think of is rape, which is absolutely a form of sexual abuse. It can also include anything leading up to or surrounding that. So that might include unwanted kissing or touching, or pressuring or forcing someone to do anything sexual that they're not comfortable with. Pressuring them to send nude photos. It could also include manipulating or controlling birth control or protection methods, or even unwanted sexual comments or words about their body or things like that. Emotional and psychological abuse is any abusive or harmful non-physical behaviors. So these might include things like criticizing or blaming their partner. If harmful behaviors have happened, maybe putting all the blame on the partner, on the other person, putting them down, calling them names, manipulating them or pressuring them or guilt tripping them into maybe doing things that they don't want to do. It could also include like pulling them away from friends or family, limiting contact or trying to isolate them, or making them feel embarrassed or humiliated. Digital dating abuse, we did spend a bit of time in our previous videos talking about this. So digital dating abuse is any type of abusive or harmful behaviors that are happening through technology. So that might include breaking into social networking sites to maybe check up on their partner, or constantly following or commenting on everything they do on the internet, demanding being given their passwords so that they can read through messages, or taking their phone and looking through their phone, constantly texting and messaging to always find out like who they are, where they are, who they're with, what they're doing, sending unwanted explicit photos or pressuring the partner to do so, unwanted monitoring of maybe their Snapchat or things like that as well. Stalking might include behaviors like following somebody, showing up uninvited to their school or their work or their home, or if they're spending time with friends, things like that. Maybe always going to their friends or other people that they know and asking where they're at or how they're doing or what they're up to. It can intersect a lot with digital dating abuse, so it might include monitoring their social media accounts, their messages, using those GPS services or Find My Friends or Snap Maps to keep track of them as well. So we could spend a lot more time talking about all the different types of specific behaviors that can be included in each of these types of abuse, but we're not going to go over all of them today, but those are some of the common types of behaviors that we see. We want to talk a little bit about who these types of behaviors happen to. Often people talk about abuse as though it only happens to women, but that's not the case. It happens to lots of different types of people, so we want to make sure that we're looking at the facts and the statistics of who is impacted by abuse. Who is this actually happening to? So we know that 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men have experienced physical abuse by an intimate partner. By intimate partner, we mean some type of dating partner or spouse or something like that. 43% of women and 24% of men have experienced sexual abuse, assault, or harassment. 48% of men and 48% of women have dealt with verbal, emotional, or psychological abuse by an intimate partner. And we also know that 43% of lesbian, gay, or bisexual youth and 89% of transgender youth have experienced physical dating violence. So we know that it happens to all different types of people in all different types of relationships, and we want to make sure that we're aware of that and that we're including that in our conversations, that it doesn't always look like just one thing. It can look like lots of other things as well. Do any of these statistics surprise you? Take a little bit of time and reflect on that. We're going to go ahead and stop here, and when we come back, we're going to look a little bit more specifically at some of those specific behaviors and kind of what that looks like in a harmful or abusive relationship. So go ahead and stop here, and we will come back and continue our discussion about teen dating violence.